Sitting in the bleachers in the rain. We've shed a million tears and drank as many old style beers out at the game. Let's go Cubby, Son Ranto.
With Michael.
Son Ranto.
And Crawley.
Son Ranto and the lovable loser. Son Ranto.
With Michael.
Son Ranto.
And Crawley.
Son Ranto and the lovable losers. Son Ranto.
Son Ranto!
Oh, Michael Cotton, you're in fine voice today. I've been watching you drink those beers out of that Advent calendar, and it's got you good and lubed up in the throat. Sound good.
I've been practicing my scream all day because the derecho's coming, and I may need help.
If it's anything like the last derecho, you're definitely going to need help. You still have down trees in your yard from last year.
Yeah, we do.
So, well, welcome to the Son Ranto Show. This is a special edition, a special lockout edition of the Son Ranto Show because, I'm here. I'm Danny Rocket. We got Crawley over there, and we got Michael Cotton. And, just to not waste any more time, we decided that since it is the lockout and I don't feel like talking about, the negotiations between the owners and the players and what it all means for us, I thought it would be better to have a night where we talk to former Cub lefty Glendon Rusch. So without further ado, here's Glendon. Hey, Glendon, welcome to the Son Ranto Show. It's awesome to have you here, and in this lockout time, this cold winter lockout that we're experiencing. First of all, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you guys. Yeah, man, I miss baseball. I miss the stuff that's normally going on in the winter right now. So it's been a little rough.
This last weekend was supposed to be the winter meeting, actually.
Yeah.
So I mean, usually we're seeing coming into the winter meetings possibilities of free agents going to different places, moves being made, all that fun stuff. We're of course all sitting around predicting what our teams are going to do, how well they're going to play, who they're going to sign, who they're not going to sign, and none of that's going on, which is sucks right now.
Yeah, it's already making the offseason feel longer.
It is.
And it's only been like a month and a half or something.
Because like the lack of activity, it's kind of like when you're sick in bed and you're not doing anything. It's just like, okay, these 2 days feel like 9. Glendon, usually when we bring people on the Son Ranto Show, I find there's this guy on YouTube that just sings people's names. So it'd be like Glendon, but they didn't have one for you. They've had one for every single other person that I've ever tried to look for one for, but there's none for Glendon. So I got curious. And I thought, I'm like, well, who else is named Glendon? I don't know any other Glendons in the world. And then so I looked up about Glendons, and there is one, and his name is Glendon Swarthout. Did you know about him?
No, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, he's a writer. He wrote Where the Boys Are and the Shootist, which was John Wayne's last film. And then
I seen that movie.
But I was looking stuff up, and then I just clicked on this Google link, and I found this chart. It seems like you were born in 1974. That was peak Glendon, 1974, right there. You can see, for the podcast listeners that are just listening to us right now, you can see that there's a huge spike right in the mid-70s of baby boys born named Glendon. And so congratulations. You got to get on that site because there's only one famous Glendon, and you got to go to famousnames.vip and submit your digits, and submit yourself because, there's got to be at least 2. But
there's a little bit of a backstory behind it. There's a little kid. It might date you guys a little bit, but there's a little kid. And on the Brady Bunch, his name was Oliver. If you remember little cousin Oliver that was on the show.
Yeah, that was like when they jumped the shark.
Yeah. So exactly. So he was on a show in 1974, and I don't remember the exact name of it. That actor, same little actor, and his name was Glendon, and my parents loved it. And so, I'm probably, I came like 11 years after my brothers and sister that are 11, 12, and 14 years older than me. So at that point, they're like, whatever, it was the name of Glendon, who cares? No reason behind it. So here we are. Yeah, I've never run into another Glendon. That's definitely the truth. But yeah, peak 74.
Peak 74. I know. I was born the exact same year. I am 1974 baby as well.
I feel like that spike was literally it was you and just like one other person. There was only two, but that's what made the spike go up that high.
Spike of Glendon's.
Yeah, it went zero from 1900 to 73, and then two back down and across. Yeah,
and it was probably all because of that little annoying Oliver kid too. Just
no doubt.
Yeah,
no
that
doubt.
That kid was the worst. It's like, and all the, once Cindy hit puberty, they needed another kid. Like the Cosby Show did the exact same thing. Rudy aged out of it. So then they needed whatever the little kid they got on after that.
Olivia.
Yeah. Every single show would do Family Ties did it.
Just so you know, Glendon, I'm the king of useless information. So
good. I'm realizing in my somewhat older age, I'm starting to forget too much because, man, I'm watching stuff that even my boys and I the other night were watching some old footage that we pulled out some old DVDs and we were watching old footage, and there was a few games that I was pitching in that first of all I looked awful, threw off. And I was embarrassed to show my kids, but I didn't remember most of the, I'm like, man, I don't remember this at bat or these pitches or whatever. It's weird. As you get older, you lose some of it.
Now, remember being drafted in the 17th round by the Royals in 1993, correct?
I remember that. Yes. I remember that very well.
There's 30 teams, and they're not all created equal. So when it's the Royals, were you like, oh man, the Royals? Could have been the Yankees, could have been the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Dodgers, some big old team. Or were you like, cool, man, I dig the Royals?
I did dig the Royals. I like that. My scout that signed me, Jeff McKay and Joe Karp, the scouts there for Kansas City that signed me were awesome. And at that time, in 93, you get the phone call, right? As opposed to seeing it on Twitter or on MLB Network. And, when you're 500 plus picks behind A-Rod, nobody's going to put you on TV. Right. I was excited and excited to sign, man. I wanted to go play. My dream was to play professionally. And at that point in time, probably not the smartest decision in the world to skip college and sign out of high school as a 17th rounder. But fortunately, I was able to stay healthy and it worked out okay.
I wanted to ask you about that too, because we actually were debating this last week on the show, given the CBA contract. And one of the things that's on the table is being able to trade draft picks and things like that, as they do in other sports. And what we said was, in many ways, the baseball draft isn't as important as, who you get in the first round, because there's guys from all rounds that made it. And I looked it up, and in the later rounds of the year you were drafted, which was 1993, Bill Mueller's in the later rounds, Jermaine Dye, Dave Roberts, Placido Polanco, Alex Cora, R.A. Dickey. There's a lot of guys. What's your feeling on that? Like, is it more important in baseball, the draft pick? And I know that's part of the negotiations, but is that even a starter as far as something that would even have an impact on the sport?
I think it could. I think it could have an impact if you're able to make some deals and start using those as leverage. And I also think that they need to figure out a way that you're not able to look. We don't want tanking, right? It would be great to see some sort of something. I don't know how to leverage the draft in a way that it makes it fair for everybody, but there's got to be a way to keep some of these lower market teams and teams that are struggling with bad records not to play, average or below baseball down the stretch, to make it more exciting, and figure out a way that those draft picks mean more, and they can hopefully help build an organization. Look what the Cubs did with, building around a nucleus of young players leading into what they did to win the World Series is a huge part of the way an organization works. Look what the organization that I worked for as a pitching coach, the Padres, they used a lot of those prospects as future bargaining chips, making deals, getting guys. They're not necessarily all homegrown. Everybody kind of thinks Tatis is homegrown. He's not, right? He
White Sox.
Yeah, he was acquired after giving up at the time James Shields, who they paid a lot of money to, but got a chip back that ends up being a potential Hall of Fame type player. So they need to do something probably different than what's going on now.
Do you think it's because that teams are tanking to get those first round picks that, 1 through 5, and is that the reason behind tanking? I know it matters to like 2011, 2012, 2013 for the Cubs organization because they picked well, but not everybody is even still on the team from those years. It's like you hit with Chris Bryant and other guys, weren't, they didn't end up having the same career as Chris Bryant.
Other guys weren't Chris Bryant.
Yeah, other guys weren't Chris Bryant. Surprise, surprise. But like, that's what I guess that's what I'm wondering is if they could somehow work the draft in a way that just because you lost 117 games that year, you don't get the first pick, maybe that there would be more incentive to try. Is that kind of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, maybe there's a lottery system that goes into it that doesn't make it just a slam dunk. Lose 110 games, you get the first pick. I think there's got to be ways to do it. I know there's a lot of smart people working on both sides, and hopefully they put something together. I love Tony Clark, for the Players Association. I played with Tony, known him a long time, and hopefully they'll do something that works out because look, at the end of the day, we want to see hopefully 20 to 25 teams competing throughout the year and maybe 5 rebuilding organizations as opposed to more on the other side, rebuilding or struggling or losing 100 games. It's no players going out there trying to tank. Nobody on any of those rosters that are struggling, whether it be Baltimore or Pittsburgh or somebody recently that's struggling. They're not going out there trying to lose games. They're going out there trying to win every day and compete and, get a contract, make money, and continue to further their career. So, but from an organizational standpoint, those first round picks have become gold, right?
Right. Now you mentioned the World Series and the Cubs winning it, and me being a memorabilia junkie, the first thing I did was like look right behind you and see all that stuff. You have the Royals jersey kind of off screen a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But you were in a World Series yourself when you were with the Mets, and you were in the Subway Series. And we always kind of talk as Cub fans, imagine if the Cubs played the White Sox in the World Series. What was that vibe like when you had that Subway Series?
It was incredible. Something I'll never forget. I was fortunate enough to get there, and I left Kansas City via trade, showed up in New York at the end of '99 when they were on that playoff push, ended up winning the wild card after a 1-game playoff, and I kind of got to be there as a spectator / player, right? I wasn't eligible for the playoffs, and I got to watch those veteran guys go about their business and be a part of a pennant run and make it to the NLCS and lost to the Braves. But it was kind of a cool preview for me. And then going into spring training the following year, I got an opportunity to make the job, to win a job and make the rotation. And we ended up in the World Series that year. Look, the Yankees were phenomenal during that stretch. Everybody knows it. 96, and then 98, 99, 2000, then won again in 01 and lost. But we were on the tail end of 3 in a row for them. And their bullpen was so good. Obviously, their whole team was great. But Stanton, Nelson, Rivera, when they got the lead, we couldn't do anything. We lost 4 games by, I think, a total of 5 runs in that series. So it was a closer series than it looks, being 4-1. And we definitely walked into it thinking we could win that series, and we were just as good or better of a team than they were, but they were better in that series than we were.
Yeah, I tell you, I lived in New York during that whole period. I lived in New York for 17 years, and so I was there through that whole Yankees dynasty. And I can tell you, being a Cubs fan, and I lived about 2 miles from Yankee Stadium in northern Manhattan. I can tell you that everybody that wasn't a fan or that was a fan of any other team but the Yankees became a Mets fan during that particular series, because it's just like we couldn't take it anymore. Watching people screaming out the windows, living by the Bronx, and we were all rooting for you, man. But it just didn't come to fruition. Yeah. But could you talk about a little bit about that rivalry? It's like, I know that's kind of New York. It's kind of a hotbed of media. You're playing in kind of a firestorm. You're on the back of the New York Post every day with some stupid phrase, making fun of you or hanging one on your head. How different is it to play in a place like New York or Chicago than it is to, play in Kansas City or Colorado?
It's a lot different. I think that New York gave me a really good crash course on how to handle it. So a handful of years later, when I ended up in Chicago, I kind of was older and a little wiser and understood that the media is going to do what they're going to do. You just need to do your job. And man, I loved being in Chicago. I loved playing in New York. Going to New York after Kansas City was a huge transition. I was drafted by them, came up, smaller market team, Midwest, not nearly the media scrutiny that you have in New York and Chicago. But from a rivalry standpoint, there was nothing like the New York series, but the Cubs White Sox series was as close as you can get. I mean, you guys saw when I was there, we were part of all the fun stuff with Barrett and Przinsky and everything. Those series were just awesome. One of my favorite games I ever played in or ever pitched was the 4th of July, the Sunday night baseball game, and at Wrigley against the White Sox, me against Burley. It probably took about an hour and 45 minutes, but man, it was fun, packed house, and knowing that all my friends and family were able to watch, and the atmosphere at Wrigley that night was incredible.
I was talking to you about memorabilia, and it's funny you mentioned that because I just got this piece. So Michael Barrett, is a really good guy and teammate of yours, and he punched Przinsky. I was actually at the game.
Okay.
So that was, Przinsky gets in, slams the plate, and then Barrett just clocks him. And he signed for me that photo. I have it signed by AJ and Przinsky. He didn't want to sign it, but we kind of came up with a deal because he did it for Montreal because he's an Expo. So
yeah.
We did it for that, and it turned out awesome. I can't wait to display that one. But you come to the Cubs in 2004, and you talk about thinking we're going to win a World Series. I mean, the Cubs just came off 2003, and we picked up Greg Maddux. So you kind of come into that with all that craziness. What was it like when you first met Greg Maddux in spring training that year in Mesa?
It was like the last day of spring training, pretty much. I was in camp, believe it or not, with the Rangers that whole spring. Was told that I wasn't going to make the opening day roster, and I had an out in my contract. So I signed the very same day and went over to Cubs camp, said hi to everybody really quick, threw on a T-shirt and a uniform, went out and pitched an inning the last spring training game in Mesa for the Cubbies. Said hi to Greg in there. I'd met him previously, as we were going against each other and on opposing teams. And I had his brother Mike as my pitching coach in Milwaukee. So I'd known him a little bit, but we started to develop a friendship and relationship as 2004 went on, and are still good buddies to this day. And we still keep in contact. And that whole crew is really tight with Dempster, Woody, Pryor. I worked for Pryor in the Padres organization, worked with him, love Mark, and all of us guys still stay in contact. I was on the golf course today. I live 5 minutes away from Todd Wellmeyer. So Big Welly and I went out and played 9 holes today. So it was warm enough here in Kentucky that we got some holes in. So it was good to see him. But yeah, we have a really tight knit group.
It's 63 in Chicago today. We could be playing baseball down at Wrigley. There's no reason except for the lockout, of course. But before we continue on with talking with Glendon, we're just going to take a quick moment for a slight commercial break. I know that you're all shopping this Christmas, so hoping that you'll use our links at sonranto.com/shopping. But here's a commercial for it, just for fun. If you're like most Americans, you buy shit. Lots of shit. Sometimes you buy shit for other people. Sometimes you buy shit for yourself. And sometimes you buy shit you have to buy just to stay alive. So why not buy shit through the Son Ranto affiliate? Links at sonranto.com/shopping. We've got tons of shit you can buy. Go to sonranto.com, click on the shopping link, then click our ads and buy shit. We've got Amazon. They've got tons of shit. But you can also buy MLB shit, NBA shit, NFL shit, Fans Ed shit, Southwest Airlines shit, Fanatic shit, Reebok shit, Wine of the Month shit, Beer of the Month shit, Bear Mattress shit, StubHub shit, Lid shit, Sports Memorabilia shit, Volcanica coffee shit, Vibrator shit, Condom shit, Bag shit, NHL shit, and Audible membership shit. There's a whole lot of shit that can help the Son Ranto Show stay on the air so we can keep talking shit. So buy shit today through sonranto.com/shopping. Thanks. Cubs Jesus thinks you're the shit. So I wanted to talk a little bit more. I know Crawley wants to talk a lot about 2004, quite a bit. That was a tough division that year. Yeah, the Cardinals end up winning 105 games. The Astros and the Cubs were fighting it out for that wild card spot. Crawley, why don't you take it from here? Like, I know you have more specific questions because you were at the stadium every day that year. That was a big Crawley year.
Every year's a big crawl year. I love going to the games, but that year was weird. But because the rotation, getting Maddox, and also you got Wood, Pryor, Maddox, Clement, Zambrano was going to be the starting five, and it was like, okay, we line up deeper and better than any team in the NL. And injuries kind of derailed a lot of things. So you were called on duty. A lot of guys were called on duty. That had to have been hard. Like not expecting to be a starter that year.
Yeah, I was. I'm a born and raised Seattle fan and a long-time Seattle Supersonics fan. I was the debt left shrimp of that rotation that year. I was the sixth man, filled in whenever I could. It was back and forth between starting and relieving, and to me, that was another part that kind of helped my career even last longer because I was able to do that. I was able to pitch out of the pen when Dusty wanted me to fill in and make a spot start. I could do that. And the ability to have my arm kind of bounce back fine and stay healthy doing that was great. And I think it kept me around longer too.
No, well, yeah. And you're a lefty. So it's like, you have all the tools there.
Yeah. What is it about lefties? I mean, it seems like I didn't look it up or anything or do any analysis, but it seems to me that if you throw with your left hand and you're a pitcher, you can hang out a lot longer in the major leagues than a right-handed pitcher. And also, I guess the follow-up question to that is, what is it about lefty on lefty matchups that make that one of the most difficult, sought after, especially for like a hard throwing reliever at the end of a game or something like that? What makes that such a baseball commodity? The lefty, 10% of the world is lefties. 25% of baseball's lefties, so what is it about the leftiness of MLB that you've thought about? I guess your thoughts on that.
It's a weird matchup. Look, left-handed hitters hate it. They don't like guys from that side that they're not used to seeing, that they don't pick up the ball as well. And you see less, right? So even if you went across the board with that 10%, you see maybe two left-handed guys in the bullpen, maybe one in your rotation. I know that year in New York, Bobby Valentine loved the fact that we had three left-handers in our rotation that were actually three kind of different left-handed pitchers. Al Leiter, Mike Al's perma cutter, and Mike Hampton was sinker, cutter, hard four-seamer, and I was fastball changeup, bigger curveball. So kind of three different guys, but all lefties, and that ended up being a great asset for us. But look, everyone always says, yeah, if you're handed a heartbeat a job in MLB for quite a while, it is kind of true. Not to downplay what we do, but you have an opportunity to stick around longer. And I don't know if the left-on-left matchups are as big a deal now as they were before with the new 3-batter rule, which I think sucks. I think I'm not that big of a fan of it. For whatever reason, we're going down a whole other path, but that's not slowing down or speeding up the games. We all know that. So that's all I got on that.
Now, when the Cubs were coming into September in 2004, things are looking good. Now, Joe Borowski, who was the closer previously, was injured, and LaTroy Hawkins took over. And all of a sudden, September was just things kind of fell apart. Like, did you guys kind of feel the pressure in the locker room, or what was kind of going on in your heads as you kind of kept having these really tough losses?
A lot of tough losses. I remember coming down the stretch, definitely not feeling like we were falling apart. I think we felt confident and we felt like we were going to pull through and win that thing. And we could never get anything to go the right way at the end. And I remember starting a game with maybe 7 or 8 games to play. I started a game against the Reds at home, and we were right there. And then next thing you know, 2 or 3 games later, we were 2 back or whatever, and we're out of it, right? Finishing up with the Braves. And that was frustrating because I felt like I had an opportunity when I was let go with Texas. When I showed up, if you could have asked me any one of the 29 teams to show up and be a part of that year, it would have been the Cubs. And I got that opportunity, and I felt like we were going to for sure be a playoff team and be a World Series contender with what we had, and it never came together.
And you know, obviously you guys didn't make it to the postseason, but you know, there's always been a lot of controversy that happened on that very last home game of the season. As you know, Sammy Sosa, who for a lot of us was the primary reason to be a Cub fan in the '90s, he walks off in the first inning. He's gone. Boombox is destroyed, and everybody's pointing fingers. You got any insight on what was going on there, or what ended up happening?
You feel like throwing that out there?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions. I was the guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you have pieces of the boombox? Is what we want to know.
Oh yeah, is that in your memorabilia behind you somewhere? Is a piece of that boombox?
Yeah, I just got one of the tape cassettes that comes out. Yeah, I saved that. That's always a touchy subject. I lockered directly across from so if I'm sitting at my locker now, straight behind me was Sammy's, and I lockered right next to him, and he had a couple lockers, and he had his boombox, and he played his music all the time. And look, I'm not going to tell you who broke it. I don't even know if I remember exactly who broke it. I'm sure there was some beers involved and everything else that went along with it. But yeah, look, we were frustrated. Sammy is an icon, and the Cubs fans, he brought so much to that city and so much to them in a Cubs uniform. And I'm sure you guys will all, back that up, because I was there for 3 years as a Cub, but saw it as a visiting player too as I came in. And I would love to see him back in the graces of Cubs Kingdom and everybody else that from a fan standpoint that wants to see him back there, whether it's at a Cubs convention or, just back at Wrigley in general, because I think he's brought so many great memories and so much joy to all the fans there that he deserves to be back in some capacity.
It seems so simple. And I always thought about that 2014, that centennial season when they brought everybody back. And I'm like, if there was ever a time, 2014, the Cubs weren't a good team. If there's any time to have goodwill and mend some fences, it was that. And now it just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like, nobody will back down from their position. And the only one it hurts are the fans.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, no, it is the only one. The only people that get hurt are the fans in that one. And look, if you can buy me a plane ticket and bring me back to a Cubs convention, I think Sammy could probably get a ticket and be back there as well.
Somebody might pay for that. You're right.
Yeah, the fans
Ronnie
are always
Woo can get into every game.
Yeah, I mean, the fans are so nice to me, and the organization's always been so good. As I wasn't there for a playoff team. I was there for 3 years. One of them wasn't so great, but part of being I guess putting together a reputation of being a good guy in the clubhouse and being good with the fans and everything else. And the people have always welcomed me back, and I love that.
Can we talk a little bit about rule changes? I was texting with you earlier, and I kind of like threw Michael Cotton under the bus, E.E. Cubbings, on the show
as they love to do.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what your function on this show, Michael, is for us to throw you under the bus. But I asked you, I said that you're anti-NLDH, so I was very clear about your position. It's not that you're anti-DH.
Clear.
Yeah, yes. I'm not. He's not anti-DH like for other leagues to have it. He's just anti-NLDH. He thinks there should be a league that doesn't have it. He finds it interesting that there's two different ways to play the game. You weren't a bad hitting pitcher, Glendon. You were pretty good, but you also said, I can't wait to rag on his opinion. He literally texted this to me, Michael. I didn't tell you before the show because I wanted your genuine reaction.
All right, you want to start, Michael? Or you want me to start?
Well, no, Mike. We've heard enough from Michael. Listen to this show.
My whole thing is
just that, numerous times.
Yeah, my whole thing is just that in an era when we're trying to keep the game entertaining and more exciting, the only real excitement coming from interleague play is seeing people play a different style of baseball than what they're used to. Pitchers who never hit, they get a chance to hit, and and then when the NL teams are in the AL, you're that's all we talk about for like the week leading up. Who's going to be the DH? Are they going to do this guy, and it's interest. It creates interest for the game. So like, I get it. Pitchers don't hit well. But I don't think that having one rule is necessarily good for the game, because it takes one of the more interesting aspects out. So that's my whole thing.
And Glendon, you were pretty good. I mean, you have 3 dongs that you hit. Do
you remember every single one of them?
Yeah. Do you remember all your homers?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Do you remember who they are off of? Because I did look it up.
I do. Yeah. The first one was off Rick Helling. Second one was off
Arizona.
Chris Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Cy Young, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And the third one was off Luke Hudson from the Reds.
Uh-huh.
And I do have 2 more homers in AAA, which I will talk about as well. It's one of my craziest games ever as a professional. It was in Iowa at the very beginning of that year in 2004 when I signed with the Cubs. I went to Iowa for like 3 weeks to stretch out into being a starter and everything else. But anyways, long story short, after 2 at bats, I was 2 for 2 with 2 homers, including a grand slam and 6 RBIs.
Oh my God. I love it.
Yeah. So I may have misinterpreted this. So Michael,
everyone does, Glendon. Everyone does.
So you're pro DH in both leagues, or you want to keep the national?
No. I don't like one rule.
He wants 2 rules. One for
I like the fact that there's a DH in the AL and there's no DH in the NL, because it creates interest when we put those 2 things together in those interleague games and in the World Series. I mean, that's a huge storyline every single year, and I don't think taking a point of interest out of the game is good for the game.
Okay, I completely blew it. I thought you were saying you were pro DH in both leagues. I agree with you. I think the National League should stay the National League. And
there we go.
And there's some reasons behind it. One of my biggest reasons is not necessarily the pitchers hitting. It's the way the game is put together, the way the manager has to use the lineup, the way the pinch hitters are used, the way the double switch is used. They took part of that out of there with the extra inning, guy on second base thing. If that goes away and you're forced to use the staff the way you have to use it, that's a huge chess match between National League managers and coaches and how they use that. I love the National League game the way it is. When I left Kansas City, went to New York, I never wanted to go back to the American League. And it wasn't really because there's a DH in the lineup. It was because I loved the National League game. But that's my opinion. That's the league I played in most. I also loved hitting. I loved bunting. I loved being a part of the game. I love the fact I could help myself within a game if I could. Dempster and I talk about it all the time. I mean, he, took pride in being able to lay a bunt down and move a guy over and all that stuff. But those things have also changed in the evolution of the way the game is played now too. We don't see as much running. We don't see as much bunting. We don't see hit and run that often. Things have changed.
We don't see as much fun, as much action.
As much action.
Yeah.
Glendon, did we just become best friends?
I was thinking of that exact same thing.
Well, I'm gonna put your hitting stats up here because they're good. I mean, for a pitcher, I'll say, but you did manage to hit the Mendoza line a couple times, including 2006 with Chicago. Which wasn't a lot of plate appearances.
Oh, look at those numbers in 02 though. Good Lord.
What happened in Milwaukee? Like, we've oftentimes accused Milwaukee of doing an Astros garbage can cheating type of scandal thing. That's our conspiracy theory on this show anyway. But you batted 288, and that's in 81 plate appearances, which is the most you actually had in your career in a season. What did you put together in Milwaukee that year? Was it just being 27, which is pretty much the best age to be?
2001, as I progressed into being a crappy hitter in New York, I started leg kicking. and leg kicking helped I started with a larger leg kick, helped my timing. I was able to get the pitches better. Look, when you play in high school, there's no comparison to what you see. And then you come up through an American League system. So I never really touched a bat all the way through the minor leagues. And then I get to Kansas City as a rookie in 97 was my first year of interleague play. So you start, hey, work on your bunting, swing the bat a little bit. It took me time. It took me a couple years of New York to kind of get the feel for facing major league pitching. And then I started leg kicking. I started seeing the ball better and swung the bat better. Unfortunately, that was my best year ever at the plate, and Mike Hampton and Jason Jennings were better. So I was not in the. I think now I think I was third in the Silver Slugger that year.
Yeah. Well, now you'd be batting higher than most of the position players on most teams, because now as long as you have 45 home runs, you could bat 200. It's not a big deal to the current game.
I know you mentioned Dempster, and I know you mentioned Cubs Convention. So as a Cubs Convention aficionado, I have to bring this up. This is CubsCon 2018. I don't know if you can see this right here. You know what's about to happen here, yeah?
Yeah.
There's Dempster on stage. Okay.
Dempster, they are preparing for a game of Flip Cup, and I believe it was the 2018 versus which was 2004, or what was it?
That was probably like the 08 team or something, maybe. That sound right?
It was 08 versus, I can't remember. They included you into the one team. You weren't a member of the team, but they included you. And I just remember watching this. This was from the Ryan Dempster show. So they're playing Flippy Cup. But watch as you get closer. So I see Thunder Matt Merton. I see Big Z getting ready to flip. Yeah. And then here comes Glendon chugging the beer, which is really, really good form, Glendon. I'm just looking at it because you kind of already like hunched over, getting ready to flip.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because the best part is a couple of them turned around and looked at me and they're like, "You weren't even on this team."
And they trusted you to be the anchor. I mean, that's a difficult position to get that last cup over. You know what I mean? There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. No, it was great. Those guys are awesome, and I love Demp's show. And I actually I've been on his show a couple times and kind of co-hosted with him for one of them. It's a blast. I love it, and him and I are really good buddies and love spending time together.
Yeah, I heard a podcast with him. Wouldn't that come out last year or something like that?
Yeah.
And no, it was. I heard that when it came out, actually, and you could tell that you had talked about a million things, because it felt like we just picked you up mid-conversation. Is kind of how it felt, Yeah. It felt less like an interview and more like just a couple of buddies talking. But like, what is it about? Like, I think that we're spoiled as Cub fans by having like kind of viewing our community as a family. And I feel like a lot of the players talk about the same thing amongst themselves and also with the fans. Is it different in Chicago to have the Cubs convention and have all this stuff going on? Do you go to like Mets convention? Do you go to, Royals convention? Do you do things like that with other teams, or is it pretty specific to the Cubs?
The Cubs are in a league of their own. I think the Mets are getting better. They brought us back this year. I was part of the 2001 team, so it was the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 game first game we played back, the famous Mike Piazza home run, and they brought us out with all the first responders for that game this year. That was awesome. But there's nothing like the Cubs convention. I've been to quite a few now, but I'll never forget my first one in 2005. After being there in 2004, walking it, and it was at the older place. I don't remember which hotel that was.
That was the Hilton on Michigan Avenue.
Yes, it was at the Hilton, and I'll never forget standing up there next to Maddox and seeing 3,000 or 4,000 people going absolutely crazy in the winter, just so excited for Cubs baseball and the team, and yeah, Chicago is a family. I still see people when I go back there now that I met 17, 18 years ago, being there as a player, going to some of the restaurants, and I love it and love going back. And my wife really loves going back to Chicago. So we try and get there as much as we can, but definitely a family.
So, any Cub fan is jealous that you got to wear the pinstripes and you got to play at Wrigley, but I'm going to kind of tell you why I'm jealous for a different reason. This is a video you took from your phone. I'm going to play this. See if you remember this one.
You do recall taking this video from backstage at Pearl Jam?
I mean, does it get any better?
I mean, that's not backstage. He's on stage. He's literally on stage with Pearl Jam at Wrigley Field in 2016.
Yes, and the funny part about that story was, of course, I was with Dempster, but at one point, I'm standing, and Demp is sitting kind of right where he was there dancing around, but he's sitting in a chair, and I think one of the tour managers or somebody that works for Pearl Jam came out and like set a beer next to his chair and a hot dog and I don't know whatever else. And I'm going to do. I was like, you're unbelievable. I mean, not only are you on the side of the stage while Pearl Jam's playing Wrigley Field, but they're bringing out concessions to you as well. So,
and for you being, I mean, that's kind of like our wheelhouse. Born in 1974, grunge hits Seattle, where you're from, or up in the Pacific Northwest. Grunge hits there. You got, the Pearl Jam obviously being one of the biggest bands, Nirvana, Soundgarden, the list goes on of bands that came out of Seattle at that time. How much did that influence? I know you're a big music fan. How much did that influence your musical tastes and being from Seattle at that kind of critical juncture of music history?
That was it. That was in 91, in the early part of the school year when I got my driver's license, right around November, that Pearl Jam 10 album, had come out a couple months before that. And I'll never forget my buddy Liz Kibbe that I used to give a ride home to every day. She got in the car one day and put Pearl Jam 10 in my CD player, and I was hooked. That was it. I was like, I'm a Pearl Jam fan, loved it. And then, Nirvana, Soundgarden, all that stuff that you mentioned, huge fan.
Chains.
Yeah, Alice in Chains, Rage Against the Machine, Tool.
Screaming Trees. I mean,
that's my whole playlist now is similar stuff, all that stuff. My wife will tell you, Kelly will tell you that I play the same songs over and over and over again while I'm working out or doing whatever in the house. So she gets tired of it. But yeah, I love those guys. And I have one little piece that I snuck out as one of my favorites that Eddie gave me.
Nice
tambourine.
Right?
Glendon Rules. It says Eddie Vedder. Right on, man.
That's a pretty cool one. So in 2000, so I went all those years and never got to see Pearl Jam live because I was minor leaguing and who knows, wherever I was, it just never worked. And eventually in New York in 2000, I finally got to go see a show at Jones Beach. So it was my first live Pearl Jam show. And I had heard through the grapevine that Eddie was a big collector of the catcher's helmets, right? Like the skull caps the catchers wear.
Yeah.
And so I brought a New York Mets skull cap to him, and he somehow figured out that I was there, however it worked out, and brought me back prior to the show. And I gave him this helmet, and I took a picture in the awkward, complete deer in headlights, was the most excited, like a little kid, right? Meeting him, and he was smoking a cigarette and working on the set list. And that was it. I was in heaven. That was my bucket list. And I've since got to hang out with him and meet him, many times and go to shows. But man, I love his connection to baseball and the Cubs and Seattle and Chicago and everything that goes along with it. He's awesome.
Yeah, that video that I played with Baba O'Reilly on that was the close. That was a great show, by the way. I mean, I think like 9 covers, 6 off of 10, 6 songs out of 10. But that was he played "Someday We'll Go All the Way," that song he wrote for Ernie Banks. So I was there the first show they played at Wrigley in 2014 when he came out with Ernie, and then he played it that night right before Baba O'Reilly. And I mean, just the specialness of that moment to play that song at Wrigley, and then a few months later the Cubs win it. Where were you when the Cubs won the World Series?
I was back home. I went to all 3 of the NLCS games in LA because at that point in time I was living in LA. So I went with Kerry Wood. We went to all 3 games there, and then I flew to Chicago for games 3, 4, and 5 of the World Series. And I went with Todd Wellmeyer, Paul Bacco, Kerry Wood, the whole crew. We were all kind of, making our way around everywhere. Went to all 3 of those, then went back home and watched them win the World Series at home. And look, I felt as if I was part of that family and part of that organization, just like I'm sure all you guys did as fans and lovers of the Cubs. It was an incredible run, and it was so fun to see them win it. The only thing that would have been better was, being on that team for it, being part of that 25-man roster. But I was so happy for them and the organization and all the fans. It was awesome.
Before we finish up with you, Glendon, we're just going to play one more minute-long commercial. Stick with us, and we'll be right back, and we'll finish up our conversation with Glendon. Here's something about Son Ranto swag.
Do you like having sex? Me too. That's why I always wear my Son Ranto swag shirts every time I'm looking to get some. It's the only t-shirts guaranteed to get you laid. Knock boots in your shankless shirt. Bump uglies in a ranter long sleeve. Ride the skin-busted Tuna Town in a Dabbing Cubes fan shirt. Take gold one-eye to the optometrist in your bull penis awesome attire, or smash pissers in a spagog shirt. Son Ranto swag shirts are just like people. There are many different sizes and colors to choose from. Plus, at Son Ranto's swag store, you'll find vintage John Baker Day, designated hater, and Matt Cameron drawn rally titty designs on everything from shirts and hoodies to baby onesies, bags, and hats. Go to sonranto.com/swag and check out all the sexy styles guaranteed to get you laid. You'll be stuffing the soft taco in no time. sonranto.com/swag, guaranteed to get you laid.
Wearing Son Ranto swag products not guaranteed to get you laid. Son Ranto swag is not responsible for your sex life. Son Ranto swag is for entertainment purposes only. So, Glendon, you Major League Baseball career, good, 13 years in Major Leagues?
Like 12 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, and, I've obviously your time with the Cubs ended abruptly. Really, you had a blood clot in your lung, probably a very scary situation. You were out for a year. How did you work your way back from that? What does that look like? What did you have to do to, you had that year off. It wasn't off. Obviously, you're working hard to get back to it. So what did that kind of gap year, that missing year in your career look like for you?
It was really rough. I had one more year on my contract, so I was supposed to be a Cubby in 2007. Wasn't able to play. I was on blood thinners for over a year. Once they decided to take me off the blood thinners, that was when I kind of had to make a choice of, okay, do I try and get myself back in shape, get in, play mode and make a comeback? And I did. And it was, really eye-opening, because having those relationships that you build in baseball is what ends up helping you down the road. And in 2008, with Buddy Black being the manager in San Diego, he got a little call from Greg Maddux saying, hey, if Rushy's healthy, you guys should take a chance on him or sign him. And Tony Gwynn's brother, Chris Gwynn, came up and saw me throw a few times in LA when I was getting healthy. And after almost 18 months off, I was able to come back and make that team out of spring training and be back in the big leagues, it was a huge success for me, because, trying to get to 10 years in the big leagues of service time is a really difficult thing, and we all want to do it. And I was able to come back and do it on my own, as opposed to being on the DL for a year. In 2007, I wasn't able to stay on the roster with the Cubs, so I didn't get any service time that year that I missed. So I was like 9+ years in the big leagues and got to come back and do it all by being out there and being active and still pitching.
So, that's a pretty amazing comeback story. I don't know how many people could do that, especially because that's not like a physical. It's a physical injury, but it's not baseball related, the injury itself. And so what does the future hold for you now? What are you working on now? You're obviously a tenacious dude. You're out there. You're a fun loving guy. You're on our show. You're out there on Twitter having a good time. You just seem like you just seem like a good person to hang out with. So you had a little coaching job with San Diego. So what's your plan for the future? What are your goals right now?
I am hanging right now at home with my boys. I got a senior in high school and an 8th grader. So I'm spending my time with them, and I am working on an amazing project with Ryan Dempster that cannot be disclosed at this point in time. I think it's going to be at least some months down the road where we can let you guys in on it. But
every time I hear something like that, it's for a movie. So it's Dempster and Rush
Buddy
I
movie.
don't know, buddy cop movie.
Buddy
Is that
Tango
what
and
we got
Cash.
coming?
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash.
Step Brothers
And then-
2 or 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm. You guys will be one of the first to know as soon as we can let the cat out of the bag. What's going on? We'll definitely let you guys know, and I promise you're gonna love it. It's in the baseball realm, and it's gonna be great.
Well, I have bad news for you. Dempster already told us at Club 400. The guy's got a big mouth. He just wouldn't shut up. I kid. No, that sounds awesome. And Demp's so talented. I know he does great stand-up work. You know, he wants to be a talk show host now. You know, it's kind of his thing, and he's great at it. He's called a lot of games. How about broadcasting? You ever think about doing something like that, being one of the color guys, you know, maybe kind of take the role that maybe a Jim DeShays has on television, or you ever think about going into that? You've got the personality for it.
I would actually love to. I would like to do, you know, I'm sure the best route would be to start out and maybe doing some pregame, postgame stuff, some analysis, and following a team and going you know, through the season, getting some time in and learning the craft and being able to do that. I would really enjoy it.
Now, you said that you grew up a Seattle fan, right? So is that the one that you want? Is that would that be the most fun to be able to call those games?
If I were to pick top of my list, I would say Cubs, Mets, probably. I think one of those two organizations that I know the best. Seattle, I was a kid, you know, growing up there. I was a Mariners fan and a Braves fan. Braves were always on TV. So that was my National League team, and the Mariners were my hometown team, and never played for either of those two. But yeah, I would say Cubs, Mets would probably be the top of my list.
Yeah, that just because you like the scrutiny of a giant market, you're like, hey, might as well start in New York. Why not? You know, it's only downhill from there.
Yeah, why in the world is this guy calling games? He was terrible. It just starts off with that, and you got to be ready for it.
Yeah,
New York Post, rush him out of there.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll let you know how they feel. That's for sure.
Yes, best New York headline ever for me was Rush Hour.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a good one. Pretty simple, but I have one somewhere downstairs where, you know, I was fortunate to pitch a good game and it was Rush Hour, which was I thought cool.
So Michael, I think, put this in the notes. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask it. You know, this has to do with, I heard you talking on, I forget what it was at somebody's show about, the whole concept of openers and the mismanaging of bullpens and pitch counts and things like that. Were you on a pitch count? Did they have pitch counts for you in your years? You had over 200 innings one year. Now, I mean, you had 160 innings a bunch of years. That's now the new 200 innings, it seems. Just real quick, like, how do you feel about the way the game has changed in such a short amount of time, in that's how pitchers are being handled?
I wish it would err a little bit more on the side of the eye test between the manager and the pitching coach, seeing that a guy's dealing and he's going to keep dealing. Pitch count was always an arbitrary 100 count, right? Kind of during our era in the 90s and early 2000s. I think when you got into a game at some point in that range that they started looking at, okay, how much further can he go? Are we going to let him go 110? Is it really worth him going 123? You know, unless he's having a real special game, something like that, where you're possibly throwing a no hitter or you're punching out 15 guys and they let you keep going. But I think for the most part, I would love to see starters go a little deeper. And look, I think that there were multiple teams this year, I won't say who they are, but that blew out their bullpens by July and August, and it killed them down the stretch. And I think that you can't look at those guys as robots. I know the numbers match up, but the amount of times that guys get up in the game to get ready and don't go in, right? The dry humps, the possible matchups that don't work out. If the guy's up 4 days in a row but only went in one game, I mean, that stuff wears on you. And by the time you come down to that last 30, 45 game stretch of the season, if your bullpen's not there and they can't take you through the games that you really need to win, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And it seems like maybe the the numbers aren't all in on the new way that it's working. So, I mean, all the numbers that you look at, they're talking about stuff that's already happened. So I don't know how predictive it is anyway, if you don't ever let a guy face somebody a third time through the order, and then all of a sudden you're down a couple dudes and you have to let somebody face a starter face somebody the third time through an order. And it's the first or second time they've ever done it in their career. And it's down the stretch in a pennant run. It just seems like, you're right. I feel like, maybe they're zigging too far when they should just kind of like,
it's like having to go bat for the first time.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly like you said, you hadn't batted since high school. And then all of a sudden you're in a American League farm system. And then you don't bat again until you hit the Mets. Like now you got to put it all back together. It seems like we should be practicing what we end up doing, So, well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, I obviously we could fill up an hour really quickly because that felt like 5 minutes to me. I'm going to let one of our ranters have the last word. This was a funny question that our friend Dan Nielsen put on the ranters page. He asked, would you rather fight one Joe West-sized chicken or 30 chicken-sized Joe Wests?
I'll take the one Joe West. Easy. Yeah. And you know what? I wouldn't even fight him. I would just go over and move the on deck circle like Adrian Beltre did. That was one of my favorite moves ever.
I remember that. It was hilarious.
I wonder how long we're going to talk about Joe West. This will be the first season that he's not in the umpiring in the major leagues in basically like 40 years or something like that. So it should be interesting.
And good friend of the show, good friend of the show, John Baker, actually said he really liked Joe West.
He was his favorite umpire.
I believe that. I never was a huge Joe West fan, but you look at him from a completely different perspective on the mound than you do the catchers. And it's funny you said that, Crawley, because I was just going to bring that up, that if you go and talk to a bunch of different catchers and key in on the relationships that they developed with those umpires, it's probably completely different than what we had as pitchers, or, because they're back there and they got to work together, like it or not. It's kind of like when you get in the box as a hitter, are you really going to complain about the strike zone all the time? Because they're not going to change them and it's not going to help you. You kind of have to develop a relationship that you work together, and the catchers are incredible at doing that. I love talking to the catchers and what feedback they were getting. And look, most of the umpires, for the most, I think, kind of liked me because I worked quick and I threw strikes and I was in the zone. And I never got tossed out of a game. That was one of my regrets. I probably should have done that. But I'm probably too nice. But I should have at least got tossed once, so I had a good story.
Well, how about this? We'll toss you off the show right now. along with ourselves, and
hit the showers.
Yeah,
hit the showers, kid. You're out of here. So no, it's I hope we get to hang out sometime in the future. It's a shame there's no Cubs convention this year. We're all pretty sad about it. But next time you're up in Chicago, come hang out with us in the bleachers. We're always in the left field well, having a good time out there. We'd love to come out, buy you a beer for coming on this show. And, definitely enjoyed talking to you today. And I'm so happy we didn't talk at all about the negotiations or the lockout or anything that's going on, because, it's too depressing to think that there might not be baseball come April this year, if they can't figure it out. Do you think they'll figure something out and get the season done on time?
I do. I do. I think they'll get something done. But ultimately, it's always some sort of deadline that's going to have to be put in place. And that's going to be enough time to get everybody into spring training on time, get the pitchers stretched out, and start the season when they should. And if they screw that up, I'm going to be pissed, along with a lot of other people and a lot of fans, because we've already been through a lot as a country with COVID and everything else, and a shortened season in 20, and to come back last year and see the enthusiasm and the amount of excitement that fans had to be back in the stands, have baseball being played, and all the way through a really exciting World Series, which I thought was great. We can't screw that up as a group. So let's hope they get it together.
Well, when it happens, we hope to see you at at Wrigley and
At
sitting
Wrigley.
in the stands. Have you ever seen the game from the bleachers?
I have. I didn't watch much. I kind of passed through with Demp a few years back, and we cruised up in the climbed all the way up into the scoreboard during one of the games, which was really cool. It's weird because you know they pull that ladder down and you're climbing up that ladder to get up in the scoreboard, and people's beers are being poured right there and everything. So hopefully I didn't have anything on my shoe. But no, yeah, I'd love to come out there and watch some innings with you guys. I'd have a blast.
Yeah, man, it's fun. And I know everybody that's been watching tonight appreciates it. Bernie says, thanks for the awesome Glendon Rusch interview, Spagog. And I think you know these people, Carrie Bronner Meyer. Hi, Glendon from Josh and Carrie and little golf tee.
Oh, yeah.
And so everybody really enjoyed it. Daryl says, what's up, fellas? What's up, Daryl? So thanks for coming on the show. We'll end it there. The Son Ranto Show is brought to you by our 105 Patreon supporters. If you would like to support the Son Ranto Show and all we do here, there's perks at every level. Just join us at patreon.com/sonranto. You get the show early and ad-free, as always. And we're going to go right after the show on the Green Room app, and we're going to continue the conversation with you. So download the Green Room app from Spotify, and we'll have a conversation over there about whatever you guys want to talk about that up there in Son Ranto Ranterland. So until next time, I wish you all Spagog. I'm going to play a song. We'll get the hell out of here. Thanks for coming on, Glendon.
Yep. See you guys.
Yep. Spagog.
I had a vision just the other day that I traveled back to 1908, the last year the Cubbies went all the way. Made a decision that I never want to come back again. I'll miss you all, but this place is heaven, 'cause here the Cubbies are the champions. And I'm not getting back in that time machine, saying goodbye to my old life, staring at a screen, unless the best damn Cubs team I ever seen can finally win it all in 2016. To see the games, $1.50. Good thing I left some money in my pants. Now I'm watching Tinkers, Evers, and Chance. Overall's pitching, damn, I had hoped to see Three-Finger Brown. Knows how to throw and mow the batters down. At least I can't afford the tickets now. Wow, oh, wow. And I'm not getting back in that time machine. I'll drive a Model T Ford on 10-cent gasoline, unless the best damn Cubs team I ever seen can finally win it all in 2016. Looking for me, I'm as happy as a Cubs fan could be, watching Chicago win the World Series. I'm not getting back in that time machine. I'll root for